Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream. I think it's the second live stream of the week. We did do one after the US election, but today it's our traditional non-farm payrolls live coverage and market analysis. So as usual, just a quick test. Assuming the sound is okay, can someone just type in the chat that the sound's working all right, and then we can just get into it. So in this video or in this live stream, we'll spend a bit of time having a quick look at what the market's expecting from the payrolls today, and then spend a bit more time looking at markets, because clearly it's been quite the week with the US election. So I think it is 1:15 now my time, so we can start. We'll look at Bitcoin as well, and silver and gold, because I think they've had a bit of a move over the last couple of days. But let's just get the risk warning done first. So it's important to understand that this presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones and Capital.com accept no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that results. Spread bets and CFDs are complex instruments and come with a high risk of losing money rapidly due to leverage. 75% of retail investor accounts lose money when spread betting and or trading CFDs with this provider. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets and CFDs work and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Okay, that's that done. So today, let's just talk quickly about the payrolls, then we'll jump on and spend, I think, most of the time on the markets, because clearly it's been a really interesting week. So the announcement is in about 14 minutes, so I'll whiz through the markets quickly ahead of that. We'll see how the market reacts to the announcement. And then if you have any questions or anything you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, and once the announcement's out of the way, we can spend a bit more time looking at stuff. So I sort of expect this to last for about half an hour today, but I'm quite happy to look at stuff after the announcement's out of the way. So what are non-farm payrolls? A major monthly economic release, usually announced on the first Friday of the month. Of course, this week we had the US election. Last night we had the Federal Reserve interest rate decision, no changes. And today we got the payrolls. So it's quite the week. It's US unemployment data, often used as a barometer for the health of the US economy. Today's expectations are for around, I think, 600,000 jobs to have been added to the US economy during October. So here's the historical data going back a year or so for the payroll. So we're waiting on the October number today. So last month was 661,000. You can see, obviously, a massive minus number in April when we had the lockdowns and redundancies and everything else. We have seen the jobs market been recovering in the US since then. A year ago we were typically getting plus 200,000 numbers a month in terms of payrolls, and obviously it's not been a normal year this year for employment around the world. So let's see what happens today. So some possible market reaction scenarios. I think there is a chance that today's payrolls might be a bit quieter than usual, given that we've had the US election this week. But below expectations, if it comes in slightly worse than expected, perhaps stock markets will still go up, seeing it as more support from central government and the Fed to try and support the economy. Dollar down, euro and GBP up, further low rates maybe to stimulate the economy. The dollar's really weak at the moment. We'll have a look at that. I think it's going to be a really interesting market to watch the rest of today and into next week. Oil down on lower economic activity if we have a weaker than expected number. Above expectations, stock markets, no change. Trend strong in stock markets. We've seen that this week. Watch the dollar for building a base, and oil up on perhaps increased economic activity. But let's take a look at the markets. So I think let's whiz through some of the more popular markets to watch today. And we'll start off with the S&P 500, so the US stock market, the broader US stock market index. I put some Bollinger Bands on here. We did do, for those of you who don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course it's free, so if you're watching on YouTube now, if you click on subscribe, we do 4 videos a week on different markets, and occasionally we do an education video. We did Bollinger Bands last Saturday. So I thought I'd put Bollinger Bands up today on the S&P, because you can see this is a daily chart we're looking at. And it was interesting, on Monday, we put an S&P video out on Monday, and I was saying, so we were sort of down here, and I was saying, well, it looks like the market should rally, but we have the big unknown of the US election. And of course, we've seen this market just push higher all week. But I think what's interesting on the S&P, it's been a good week, but it's still, broadly sideways. We go back to where we were in September, we're still in this, just pretty wide sideways range, really, and we're pushing to the top of the Bollinger Bands. So perhaps we'll have a day of consolidation today. Perhaps we've seen this market move far enough in the short term. Let's see how it reacts to the payrolls coming out. If we take a look at gold, I think we did the gold video yesterday, went up last night, where we looked at some gold mining stocks. I think gold's interesting because clearly we had all-time highs for gold in August at $2,075 an ounce, and it's just been drifting since then. But I think what has been interesting, it spiked to a low in August around about $1,860 an ounce. It tried to push lower in September and we didn't really get the follow-through. So we've seen it bounce back. And at the time of recording, gold is trading at its best levels for about, 6 weeks. We go back to those mid-September levels on gold. So it's a strong finish to the week for gold, but it has had real problems in this sort of 2,000 to 1980 an ounce area. So I wonder again, given we've seen a fairly strong move over the last few days, are we going to have a quieter day for gold today? We'll see. We'll see how things work out. Silver as well. We'll look at silver. We'll look at Bitcoin. Then we'll look at some other some of the FX pairs. Silver again 7-year highs in August. Falls off a cliff down to $22. But again, a good move the last couple of days from about 24 to 25.65 at the moment. It's interesting, I think, if silver can hold at these levels into the end of the day, it starts to look like perhaps a breakout on silver up here. So maybe we can start targeting a run back to 28. The next video we're doing, which will go out on Monday, so you'll see it on our YouTube channel on Monday, is on gold and silver. So sort of medium-term outlook for gold and silver, because I think it is quite interesting what's happened this week. And Bitcoin, which is the market I always say I hate, but it's done really well. Bitcoin, clearly, this is the trend for Bitcoin, going off the March lows at below $4,000 to where we are now, $15,500 for a Bitcoin. And it's interesting because, to me anyway, if we go all the way back to Feb 2018, the highs were about 12,000. June 2019, the highs were about 14,000. And you can see Bitcoin has always really struggled to stay in this 12 to 14,000 area. And when we looked at it after the election, I was saying if we see it hold here, then perhaps we can start being much more bullish on Bitcoin. I mean, it's a massive move yesterday. So I do think, which does seem perhaps a little bit ambitious at the moment, that perhaps we could see, famous last words, these old all-time highs for Bitcoin being challenged at some point. I mean, clearly, at the moment, in the short term, it does look pretty overextended up here, but I'd be quite happy to be a buyer on dips for Bitcoin. But crazy moves over the last, if you go back to beginning of October, it's up 50%, isn't it, since the beginning of October. We've got about 7 minutes till the number comes out, so let's look at some more traditional FX markets. Euro, US dollar. Euro, finally, I've had some, for those of you who watch our channel, I've had these trades on Euro, US dollar running for what feels like ages. There's one going back to May, and there's one from July. So we do these trades when we look at markets. And finally getting a move on the euro over the last couple of days. Whether it lasts remains to be seen, because we saw a recovery high hit in early September, and it's all been a bit sideways and drifty since then. So I think the euro is going to be really interesting to watch from now on over the next few weeks to see if we can have a bit more of a push higher. Pound against the dollar. It's been a really choppy couple of days for the pound against the dollar. Look at these candles here. You can see day before election day, up a load, up about a couple of 100 points. Next day, gives it all up. Next day, claws it all back. So a bit of a wild ride for the pound against the dollar this week. If we have a look on the hourly chart, you can maybe see the swings a bit more clearly. But a crazy few days for pound against the dollar. We'll see how that reacts after the numbers. And crude oil. So the crude oil price. We saw crude oil gap down on Sunday night, Asian trade. And it's rallied really strongly since then. I think it's quite interesting, actually, that gap down in oil, how quickly it came back off. This is West Texas. This is West Texas cash market. So traded down to $33.78 on Sunday night, and it's just rallied like a maniac this week. I'd be really tempted to be a buyer on any more weakness in oil. Maybe it's a trade for next week, but if it starts to sell off and we see support come in, it'd be great if it sold off back to 35 and having a stop loss underneath that 33.70 low. We'll see what happens. And NASDAQ 100, I've just seen someone's ask for the NASDAQ 100. So if we have a look at the NASDAQ, pretty similar. I mean, bigger swings, obviously, than the S&P. All-time highs in September at 12,360. Sells off, has another go again at those highs in October. And again, we're back up here again now. So I do wonder for stock markets, in the short term, today, and let's see how next week goes, are we maybe overextended a bit to the upside? You can see the RSI down here. It's a 10-day RSI. It's done a pretty good job of calling the extremes. So overbought up here in October, oversold down here late October, early November, and almost pretty much went overbought yesterday. So it is maybe looking a bit extreme in the short term. So we've got about 3 minutes till the number comes out. So I've got I'm just trying to keep an eye on a news feed here, and I've got a Twitter page open because the US Bureau of Labor Statistics do tweet out the number pretty much as soon as it's released. So we'll see what happens. But let's bring up a market to keep an eye on. Let's bring up the Dow Jones Index, because that can be, I think, quite dramatic, and we'll see how these markets react. So the number to keep in our head is 600,000-ish, 575, 600,000. That's what the market's expecting. If we look at the Dow, yesterday the Dow closed, the official close, New York time, was here, 28,380-ish. So it's off about 170 points from last night's close. Clearly, it's a 24-hour market. So we'll see how these markets are doing. I will have a look at those requests for some of the markets that people are putting in once the number is out of the way. So we've got a couple of minutes until it comes out. Let's keep an eye on that. And it wouldn't surprise me. We've had such a dramatic week anyway, and clearly markets do seem to be factoring in, a Joe Biden win. We're still waiting for it to be for an official result, obviously, for the US election. So after some of the excitement we've had this week, it wouldn't be too surprising if we have perhaps maybe a quieter than normal payrolls. So let's see what happens. So I think we've got just over a minute now till the number comes out. But I think interesting markets to watch going into next week. I think gold is really interesting, gold and silver, because they have been fairly quiet, since they saw all-time highs, or gold all-time highs in early August. And it'll be interesting to see if it's gearing up for another push back to those all-time highs. Let's just flip it back onto the Dow and watch this market. Hang on. So we've got less than a minute now until the number comes out. So we'll see what it looks like. Okay. So it's been a bit weaker overnight stock markets, not surprising given the rally that we've seen. Let's see how much impact, if any, this payrolls announcement makes. We will see. You'll see the market move before I actually see the number. So let's just zoom in here. We're just on a 1 minute chart. We've got about 5 seconds until it comes out. So we're at 28 to 13-ish. Right, here it goes. Where is it? You'd often see almost what feels like a headless chicken reaction by markets to this, that you get a move often in one direction only for it to reverse and go the other way. So I think if you are going to trade the payrolls, perhaps the better way, there goes 638, so better than expected. So 638,000 is the number, so better than expected. The market was sort of 575, 600,000, which is what was expected. So the stock market likes it so far, but as I say, we can often get some wacky moves on this. So before the number came out, the Dow was at 28,214, so it's jumped about 50 points on that number. Let's take a quick look at some of the other markets. Let's take a look at the gold price. What did the gold make of the move? Okay, so we're seeing a bit of weakness for gold. So the gold price before it came out was around 1954. It lost about $4 on the news, and it's jumped back up to where it was before the news came out. So not too much drama there. Let's take a look at the euro. So the 1 minute chart on the euro. So before the number came out, the euro was trading about 118.80, and it's a massive 4 points lower at the moment. Yeah, not that dramatic. And oil, let's see what the oil market made of it. Oil likes it. So again, not surprising, I suppose. More jobs being created than was expected suggests perhaps a slightly stronger economy than was expected, and strong economies usually good for the price of oil. So the oil price before the announcement was $37.83, so it's moved about 20 cents higher. So better than expected, nothing too dramatic. But let's see what the rest of the day brings. Clearly there's a lot going on in markets at the moment. So I'll take a look now at just I'll have a quick look at the S&P, then I'll go through any questions that you've got, and we'll look at things in more detail. So here's the S&P 500. So again, perhaps a little blip up so far on the S&P, and let's see what happens this afternoon. Let me just take those Bollinger Bands off because they're too confusing to me having all that stuff on the chart. So a little blip up for the S&P. I think perhaps some levels to watch this afternoon in the S&P. What was yesterday's low for US stock markets? It was here right at the open. So it has traded below yesterday's lows, stock markets. We're currently at the moment pushing back up towards yesterday's low. It'll be interesting to see where it opens today, and if it does open around yesterday's low, do people see that as an opportunity to buy cheap again, and we have a bit of a push higher? It's certainly doing well so far. So let me have a quick look at some of the questions that came through. If I miss anything, just put it into the chat again. Someone's asked for Google and Facebook. Let's take a quick look at those. So Google, well, let's just look on the daily charts. Let's not worry too much about the short term. If you follow the stuff that we do on YouTube, you know I'm a big fan of trend following. And yesterday, Google's shares hit fresh all-time highs, just about. So poked through the previous all-time high from early September at $1,730 a share. Poked through yesterday by about $30. So that would be bullish. A breakout like that is normally bullish. The question is, do we see it have a bit of a pullback first? But at the moment, at least, you cannot argue with the trend on Google at the moment. It'd be great if we got a bit of a sell-off back to the old trend line and this old big support down here. But that's, clearly a really strong move yesterday for Google. Great move there. And Facebook, someone asked about Facebook. take a look at those. Facebook, Facebook had been trending higher, and we sort of lost the trend a bit, didn't we, from early August, mid-August rather, and it's pushing back up. I suppose if you really wanted to go short Facebook, now's the time to go short, because if we go short up here, we've got an obvious place for the stop loss above that August high. The August high was $307 a share. So going short at 292 is interesting up here. But again, if it breaks out through those old highs, I think perhaps the risk is we're going to see it push higher again. So Facebook's an interesting one for slightly different reasons up there. Natural gas, someone asked about. Natural gas it was a strange old market, natural gas, isn't it? But it's been selling off. I think we looked at this actually earlier the week when we did the live stream on the US following the election. And I'm still watching it to see if we get any strength coming in. Because on natural gas, the market, had been trending higher off the July lows around 165, and it had doubled into October. Maybe it'd gone a bit too far in the short term, but we do have quite a bit of support coming in from about 256 for gas through to 280. If you look at the RSI down here, it is heading towards oversold. So I think that's an interesting market to watch next week, natural gas, if you trade it, because I think I'll be looking to see if we get any strength coming in. But it can be a vicious old market, natural gas. Personally, I would definitely wait for at least one day where it stopped going down, where it turned around, because once it starts moving, it really does move. But I think natural gas is an interesting one, and I would be looking to see if we get any strength coming in on that one. What else? Oh, FTSE. Someone asked about the FTSE. So the UK. FTSE's been a real laggard, hasn't it? If we look at it, I think we did do a video on indices the other week, and I think I've got an order in to go short somewhere on the FTSE. Here we go. You can see it on the chart. I've got an order in to sell at 6,050 on the FTSE. Look how underperforming it's been this year. Falls off a cliff into March, like many markets, of course, as the pandemic spread. Bounces back, but whereas S&P and NASDAQ have carried on up here, look at the FTSE. The FTSE for the last, 5 months now, has just been drifting. So for me, personally, I'd be looking to be a seller. And I do have an order in to sell at 6,050, which is about 140 points higher than where we are now. So it's been a real underperformer, and I think it does need to break through, maybe 6150 to shake off this weakness. But you'd definitely be kicking yourself if your money was in the FTSE since March rather than being in the S&P. Okay, what else have we got? Natural gas. We looked at natural gas. We looked at Google. Dollar yen. Let's have a look at the dollar. We should look at the dollar index actually before we look at dollar yen. Let's take a look at the dollar index. I often mention this, and it's a really interesting market. Not many, I think your average retail traders follow it, but it's a really interesting market because it's the US dollar against a basket of other currencies, against the euro, the pound, the Swiss franc, the Canadian dollar, etc. And I had been wondering, were we seeing a base for the dollar index? Because you see it sold off really hard in March, then it bounces back really strongly to 104, third week of March, and it's lost about 10% since then. But it's looked like it's been trying to build a base off these lows at 91.72 from September. We had a 300-point rally, and we're back again. So I think the dollar index is going to be a really interesting one next week. Whether it's falling because Joe Biden's got in, and the concern is more support, weaker US dollar, all that sort of stuff. We'll see. But I think that's a really interesting market next week. Are we going to see these old lows hold? And the reason it's interesting, because if we go all the way back to here on the dollar index, we've got pretty much like a 9-year uptrend on the dollar index, and we're right on the line now. We're right in the trend line now. So I think if we lose those old lows, we could see a much bigger correction for the US dollar, which would mean higher gold, higher silver, higher Bitcoin, higher pound, higher euro. So I would really be watching this market closely next week. But dollar yen was the question. So let's have a look at the dollar against the Japanese yen. Let's have a quick look at that. So again, weaker. We're seeing, look at that lovely downtrend we've got going on in dollar yen. So I did think that was going to hold, at 104, because 104, let's get rid of the indicators for now. 104, you can see back in July, again in September, and it's gone crashing through the 104 level. So that trend, confirming that trend really from March this year. And there's a lot of fresh air now for dollar yen, down towards 101. It did react quite quickly off 101. We've got quite a bit of support coming in, 102.75. But undeniably weak at the moment, isn't it? The old dollar against the yen in particular. You can see that. Let me have a quick look at any other questions. What else have we got? What's your favourite market? The S&P 500. That is my favourite market, I think, because there are always lots of opportunities, and it's it's clearly heavily traded. So that's a market that I always look at, the S&P. But also the dollar index, the one we were looking at there. I do like that market as well. Someone asked about the DAX. So the DAX is obviously the German stock market. I was wondering yesterday whether the DAX could be a short, because it's had a really strong bounce back since the end of October. It's gone from 11.3. It's bounced back 1,000 points, isn't it, off these lows. But like the FTSE, it's been a real laggard, the DAX. So I could well be tempted. I suppose an aggressive trade now would be to go short the DAX with a stop above the 23rd of October highs at 12,720. But the DAX, like the FTSE, has really underperformed, and recently slipped to its worst levels since May. So it hit a 5-month low at the end of October. So it's been pretty weak, the DAX, isn't it? What else have we got? Silver price target, please. I've got no idea, to be honest. I tend not to worry too much about price targets, but I would say, I think if it can hold above sort of $25, if we see, let's maybe flip this over to a shorter term chart. Hang on a second, here we go. So it had been pretty sideways. You can see it there, just pretty sideways. But now we're trying to break through 25.60. So perhaps we have just a choppy day today. But I think next week, if we can start moving up again through 25.60, I think a move back to the sort of 27.50 range isn't out of the question. As ever, there are two ways to this, aren't there? There are always two sides, two arguments in a market. You could take the view the strength over the last few hours is a bit of a freak move. So an aggressive trade would be to go short silver now at 25.59 with a stop perhaps above $26. If you think it's just a false breakout on the upside and it's going to pull back into the range, that's definitely one trade. So I think that's one idea. Or next week, let's see, does it push back up above 25.60? And then I think we can start targeting this area from mid-August and into September on silver. Let's see what happens. What else have we got? Silver, we looked at that. What happens to the market on the off chance that Trump wins? That would be quite hilarious. Well, not hilarious. We don't do politics on this, do we? But that would be quite the shock, I think, if Trump wins. So I would expect massive volatility if President Trump ended up winning the election. Stranger things have happened. So let's see. But I think at the moment the market and the bookmakers are pricing in a Biden win. Soybeans. They are. Do we cover soybeans? They are. I looked at the soybean chart yesterday. Actually, it's Hang on a second. Let's bring it up. We don't cover it yet. We don't cover it yet. But soybeans is a really bullish chart at the moment. But it's not a market that we cover just yet. What else have we got? Soybeans, nickel, long-term buy because of EV demand. I've never ever actually seen a chart for nickel, so I wouldn't know on that, to be honest. I don't know if it's that widely a traded thing, so I can't really comment on that one. What else have we got? Any update on your Netflix short? Am I still in the Netflix short? Hang on a second. Let's have a quick look. I think I might have been stopped out of that. Oh no, it's still there. So it's losing money. So I sold it. Where did he sell Netflix? 14th of August at 482. and it's 5.10 at the moment. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at Netflix. You'd have thought, with all the lockdowns coming back, it would have done okay this week, and with the general market bounce back. Let's have a look at the Netflix short. It's just been a bit. I think I'm sort of quite happy to stay short there. It's just not done anything though, has it? Really, since the middle of July. So we spent 3 months. Is it 3 months? Yeah, 3.5 months of going sideways. So for now, I'm happy to stay short that. It's maybe not the greatest short in the world, to be honest, but let's see. I think clearly it needs to start breaking down through 458. Let's see, what else have we got? What other questions have we got? Euro dollar is creeping higher. Somebody's saying, let's have a look at that. Euro US dollar. Yeah. What's it done since the payrolls came out? It's sort of still a bit choppy around, isn't it? So before the payrolls, it was there. So it's come off a little bit after an initial sort of push higher. But I do think it's a really interesting market now. The euro and the pound, because of this dollar weakness we've seen over the last couple of days. I mean, if you took the euro out over the last 2 months, you can see there it's still pretty sideways, isn't it? So even though we had some dramatic moves this week, it's still pretty sideways overall. And on the dailies, we have this old high at just above 120. So it's about 130 points away from where it is now. Perhaps if it broke through there, things get more interesting again. I do still think we could see further euro strength. And if it starts breaking 120, longer term, medium term, I'd be targeting these old 2018 highs maybe, up at 125. But you can see just how fairly sideways it's been. Well underpinned by 116, but fairly sideways. What about EEM? What's EEM? I don't know what that is actually. If you want to tell me what EEM is. Is it the Emerging Markets ETF? Let's have a look at that anyway. That's doing well. Bitcoin, we had a look at Bitcoin already. Let's have another look at Bitcoin, just a quick catch up where it's trading now. 15,680 Bitcoin. So it's pushed. It's been a bit sideways today, but still clearly strong overall. Will gold reach 2,100 today? No way. Well, famous last words, no way. You never say never, but I'll be amazed if we saw gold break out to fresh all-time highs today. I think that might be a little bit too much to hope for at the moment, but I do think it's an interesting market to watch going into next week. How about wheat? I don't know if we do wheat, actually. It's not a market that I look at. Oh, wheat, there we go. Look at that. Wheat is going up. It's interesting. It's always interesting, I think, to look at these markets that I never normally look at. So wheat has gone from, if you put all your money in wheat in March, you're up about 30-odd% since the March lows for wheat. Historically, we can see important old highs for wheat from 2018, up at $190 or whatever it is a bushel, or 190 cents. I don't know what it is. 191. So it's an interesting chart though. Wheat, please tell us what's the reason for shorting the DAX? Oh, because the trend has been down. If you look at the DAX, it's been really weak, or fairly weak, since September. And it's bounced back really strongly, but we have a bit of resistance coming in there. So I just wonder if we're going to see the DAX run out of steam. I don't really trade the DAX, to be honest, so I don't really know. And it's still strong at the moment, perhaps not to go short yet. What do you think about Nikola? Nikola, is that the... I did have a short on those, I think. Is that the other... electric car company? Didn't they get their shares suspended? I haven't followed the story. Are they obviously trading now? But weren't there some irregularities with those? I mean, if you look at those, for me as a trend follower, which way is the trend? I suppose if you're an aggressive buyer, it could be a buyer down here with a stop the other side of $16, maybe, but it's not one I follow too much. I think we did have a short on that from before that got closed out. So I suppose if you really fancied a bit of bottom fishing, you could take the view The lows in September were 16. It's drifted back again, and we are seeing a little bit of strength coming in yesterday. So I suppose that could be quite a high-risk approach if you want to do that one. How can you hold your trades for months? Don't you pay any interest? Yes, you do. And it is quite rare. It's a bit of an odd one, this. It's a good question. Because clearly, to make things more interesting, when I do a video on a market that goes on our YouTube channel, try and do a trade, because it makes it more interesting rather than just saying it might go up, it might go down. We have trades we can follow. But in some of these trades, like the 27th of May, the Euro trade, that's been running for nearly 6 months now. That is too long, because I will be paying interest every day on those trades. You can see overnight fee. Where's the Euro overnight fee? Overnight fee for the Euro was £1.13. So I'm paying quite a lot of interest, which you do with contracts for difference, obviously, and spread betting. You'll pay quite a bit of interest. So it's better for trades over a few days, few weeks, maybe a few months. But this account is a bit of a strange one, because obviously we put the trade on, and then I don't bother updating it until we do the next video. So the trades on this account do tend to run longer than my other trades. But even with the interest, it's still up overall. I think you started trading it with £10,000 back in August of 2019. So it's still up, even paying interest, sort of 4,300. And it's been much higher than that. I've given back a chunk of profit. But you're right, for longer term trades, you do need to trade. It's a trade-off based on the interest. I should mention, actually, before we get into anything else, our special offer on the day. We talked a bit about euro dollar and the US dollar today. We're doing zero spread on the euro today. So if you're a client with us or you open an account today, you won't pay any spread on euro US dollar. So let me show you what that means. Clearly, all markets have a spread. But basically, if you trade the euro with us today, because we recognize it could be a busy day for markets, how can I show you, actually? If I show you here, the buy price and the sell price are exactly the same. So there's no cost of trading. Most markets have a spread. Euro sterling is a couple of points, 1 point, but the euro dollar is no point. So if you open an account today, if you go to Capital.com, open an account, there's no spread to pay. Download our app just for today only. So I thought I better mention that. Let's get back into the markets and the questions. Palladium. What else have we got? Palladium. Natural gas. We looked at natural gas. We looked at nickel. Whatever they're called. Nicola. Palladium. I've talked about palladium in the past. I do have a trade for myself in another account for palladium. I think it's really interesting market, palladium. I had no idea about it until about 2 years ago. But some great trends in palladium. 2018 trend, and then the trend from August 2019 went from 1374 to 28 in February, so doubled. Absolutely fell off a cliff in March. It halved in March, and it has been building this recovery. So I've got a trade on in palladium somewhere else, and it had fallen out, but it looks like it's trying to get back into it again. So for me personally, clearly none of this is financial advice, but I'm still long palladium. And perhaps if we can break sort of 2,500 on palladium, it gets a bit of a move on again and targets the old high. So I suppose if I was a buyer now, I'd want my stop loss. Good support has emerged around 2160 on palladium. So it's a really interesting one. What else have we got? Silver, we've done silver quite a bit. It'd be great if you make a course for novice traders. We do have, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, we do. If you could hit the like button as well, actually, if you're watching that, I should mention that because that does help our numbers. But we do perhaps twice a month a trading strategy thing on YouTube, looking at some stuff. So we do, as well as looking at markets, I do and try to do some introductory trading stuff. Is it likely we see oil back above 60 next year? It's a good question. It's strange oil, I think, at the moment. I mean, never say never, but I think with so much unknown because of the coronavirus and the lockdowns, it's difficult to see oil up here, I think, isn't it, at the moment? And I just think it did feel like in the summer we saw this incredible bounce back for oil, and it got to $45 or so. And it just feels that maybe the oil market was overestimating the strength of the economic recovery. And now we're seeing lockdowns and cases and everything else. I think perhaps we'll just see oil drift and chop around in a range. So, I can't see it myself back up at 60, the same way I can't see it down at 20 either. So perhaps it just bangs around in the range, oil. Platinum, I'm going to start wrapping things up in a couple of minutes. I will give you my contact details at the end. So if you've got any questions, drop me an email. Platinum is probably a little bit similar to palladium in terms of trends. I got a trade on platinum as well, actually, that's not gone anywhere for a while, but has got to move on the last couple of days. It had been trending higher, fell out of the trend in September. Like a lot of markets, went sideways since September. And I wonder, it fell, but it didn't take out the old lows at 785-ish. And I wonder, is it going to get a move on again and have a look back at those highs up there? If I didn't have a trade at the moment, I'd probably be tempted to do nothing and see if it sells back towards 840 and then has a push back up. But I think it's an interesting one. It's maybe not as interesting as some of the markets we've looked at today. But I do have a trade at the moment. And I suppose you could say, I'm not a fan of chart patterns, but I suppose you could say for those of you who do look at chart patterns, there is maybe a triangle thing going on like that at the moment. And it needs to break out one way or the other. So let's see. Right, I think we'll start wrapping things up there. So I don't know when we're doing the next live stream. We do these quite regularly now. We've done 3 over the last 2 weeks live streams, but I'm sure we'll do another one in November. Then we'll be back again for the payrolls in December. To find out more about the company, clearly the platform I'm using today has been Capital's platform. So go to Capital.com. You get access to all the markets we've looked at today. You can open a demo account, open a real account, download our app from the app stores. Any questions, drop me an email, david.jones@capital.com. I mean, clearly I can't give any financial advice, but if you have any questions about anything, that's not, should I buy Bitcoin, send me an email. You can follow me on Twitter @JonesTheMarkets, and of course follow Capital.com on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already. Like I say, we do 4 videos a week normally, and if you're subscribed and you click the alarm bell, you'll get that notification off YouTube when we go live. And if you have any suggestions about what live streams you'd like to see, what topics you'd like to see us cover, please leave us a message down in the comments. But we'll wrap things up there. Thanks for coming along. It's been a really interesting week for markets. We'll see what next week looks like. But I think markets quoted against the dollar, like gold and silver, pound and the euro and Bitcoin, could be really interesting markets in the next few weeks after this dollar weakness. So that's it. Okay, we'll wrap things up there. Thanks for coming along and enjoy the rest of your day.